Joshua, who lived approximately 1,500 years before Christ, had a significant encounter with God. This encounter was not with a distant God, but with the Son of God in a pre-incarnate form, something that radically transformed his life. Interestingly, the name Joshua is the same designation given to Jesus during his incarnation, sharing even the Greek transliteration and carrying the meaning of Yahweh is salvation. Symbolically, Joshua anticipated the role of Christ by leading the Israelites to the conquest of the Promised Land, serving as a precursor figure to what Christ would accomplish on a much larger scale, as discussed in the book of Hebrews chapter 4. This chapter points to Joshua as a type of forerunner, but only a shadow of the true salvation offered by Christ, who leads us to eternal rest in heaven. The decisive moment of this encounter between Joshua and the deity is narrated in the book of Joshua, chapter 5, verses 13 to 15, where Joshua encounters the commander of the army of the Lord. This meeting is described as a crucial point for leadership and divine presence among the people of Israel, though it remains shrouded in mystery for many scholars regarding the identity of the divine figure who met with Joshua. On the eve of the conquest of the Promised Land, as the Israelites camped at Gilgal near Jericho, after crossing the Jordan River miraculously, celebrating Passover, and eating the fruits of the Promised Land, Joshua encounters an enigmatic figure armed with a sword. When inquiring which side the strange warrior was on, the response he receives transcends the duality of ally or enemy, revealing the sovereign presence of God in the unfolding events. This individual identifies himself as the commander of the army of the Lord, instructing Joshua to recognize the holiness of the moment and the place where they stood. This encounter highlights divine intervention in history, going beyond the mere battle between nations to affirm the fulfillment of the promise made to the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that their descendants would inherit the land of Canaan. The episode of the commander of the army of the Lord is reminiscent of other divine interactions, such as those experienced by Jacob. A less popular theory suggests that this figure was an angel, with a special mission to represent God and convey his will to the chosen people. However, the prevailing interpretation among Bible scholars is that this figure was, in fact, a manifestation of Christ himself. This type of appearance, known as a christophany, occurs when the Son of God appears in a visible and sometimes humanized manner during the Old Testament, anticipating his incarnation in the New Testament. Firstly, it is notable that the man who met Joshua accepted worship, something that, according to the Scriptures, is reserved exclusively for God. This fact, coupled with the New Testament's admonition against the worship of angels, reinforces the divine nature of this figure. The acceptance of worship by this character indicates his divinity, suggesting he is more than just an angel, but a manifestation of God himself. Secondly, the command for Joshua to remove his sandals due to the holiness of the ground harks back to similar divine manifestations in the Bible, like Moses' experience with the burning bush. This suggests that the presence at the site was not merely that of a divine envoy, but of God in person, marking the ground as sacred by his presence, which goes beyond a simple angelic appearance. The instructions given to Joshua came directly from the divine. The narrative of theophanies, or christophanies, recorded in the Scriptures demonstrates how divine encounters were essential in the guidance and formation of leaders among God's people. These interactions not only shape the trajectory of these individuals, but also teach us about the profound relationship between God and his people. Joshua's interaction with the celestial leader resonates with the decisive moments experienced by Jacob at Peniel and Moses at the burning bush, where each confronted a divine manifestation before crucial events. Jacob, returning to his land, was preparing to reunite with Esau. Moses was receiving his mission to free the Israelites from Egypt, and Joshua, on the verge of taking Jericho, found himself at the threshold of a significant moment. These events underscored the support and divine presence in each leader's respective mission, providing not only specific guidelines, but also a sense of transformation and encouragement. They emerged from these encounters with a renewed understanding of their tasks and the certainty of divine support. However, Joshua's experience with the commander of the army of the Lord distinguishes itself from the episodes experienced by Jacob and Moses. While Jacob wrestled with the divine entity and Moses initially hesitated, Joshua readily accepted the authority and instructions of the celestial leader without resistance or questioning. His immediate acceptance and lack of hesitation reflect an unwavering confidence in the victory provided by God. Unlike the narratives of Jacob and Moses, which included a process of accepting divine authority marked by doubts and resistances, these divine encounters, though with the same divine entity, occurred under different circumstances and for distinct purposes. Jacob was being prepared to become the patriarch of a nation, Moses, the liberator and lawgiver, and Joshua, the warrior leader tasked with leading the nation to conquer its promised land. This pattern of divine encounters continues with the Lord's appearance to Abraham as a traveler in the oaks of Mamre during the heat of the day, where Abraham receives the promise of a son's birth and the news of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Despite the similarities in recognizing the supernatural character of these encounters and the divine nature of the visitors, there is a clear contrast between the experiences of Abraham and Joshua. Unlike Abraham, who received the divine being in the form of a traveler at the door of his tent, Joshua met with a celestial general on the brink of a battlefield, marking a significant difference in the circumstances and context of these divine manifestations. While Abraham was graced with the promise of a son's arrival, Joshua received directives to lead a war. Abraham, upon being informed about the condemnation of Sodom and Gomorrah, chose to intercede. In contrast, Joshua unhesitatingly followed the divine orders regarding the fall of Jericho, understanding that it was time to witness the fulfillment of the divine promise to deliver the promised land to Abraham's lineage. This highlights the unique way the Lord reveals himself to his servants, catering to their specific needs. To Abraham, the Lord appeared as a traveler, symbolizing hospitality. To Jacob, he appeared as an adversary, inciting submission. To the three Hebrews in the fiery furnace, he was the unchanging companion. And to Joshua, he presented himself as a military commander, readily prepared for combat. This variation in divine manifestation reflects the personalization of the support and guidance that God provides to each individual according to their journey and specific challenges. The pre-incarnate appearance of Christ to Joshua specifically underscores the continuity of divine support from the time of Moses, now extended to Joshua, the designated successor to guide Israel. God's promise to be with Joshua, just as he was with Moses, culminates in the moment when Joshua receives divine encouragement and direction for the crossing of the Jordan and the subsequent conquest of Canaan. The Lord's presence, symbolized by the figure of the armed commander, signals readiness for battle and the certainty of divine judgment. The instructions to encircle Jericho, though seemingly illogical from a human perspective, emanate directly from the celestial commander, ensuring the mission's success. This divine command, culminating in the fall of Jericho's walls at the sound of the trumpets and the people's shout on the seventh day, exemplifies obedience to a strategy that, despite being unusual, is infallible because it is divinely ordained. This episode not only reiterates God's supreme leadership in Israel's affairs, but also emphasizes the importance of faith and unconditional obedience in the promises and power of the divine. Often a leader can feel isolated when facing critical decisions with the potential to deeply impact those under their leadership. While it is not clear if Joshua experienced these feelings of isolation, his interaction with Christ before the incarnation highlights how God intervenes to guide, correct, develop, encourage, and establish a relationship with those he has chosen. The stories of biblical figures such as Abraham, Jacob, Moses, and Joshua illustrate the depth of submission, recognition, and trust required in the face of divine authority. showing that a true encounter with God is transformative, offering encouragement and preparation for the assigned missions. These historical divine encounters served not only as moments of guidance and strengthening, but also as harbingers of the full revelation of God's grace and redemption through Jesus Christ. Joshua's meeting with a pre-incarnate manifestation of Christ is particularly noteworthy, suggesting a special preparation for what was to come. However, today, we live under even more favorable circumstances than Joshua, as we witness the fulfillment of Christ's promise, who not only came into the world and performed the redemptive sacrifice, but now also resides in us through the Holy Spirit. This episode reinforces the understanding of God's sovereignty in all areas of life, including the challenges and conflicts we face. It reminds us that we are not helpless in our adversities. God Himself guides us through His Word and constant presence in us, offering protection, guidance, comfort, and leadership in our battles, ultimately leading us to our eternal inheritance by His side. Thus, this encounter between Joshua and the commander of the army of the Lord acts as a powerful reminder of God's continual presence with us, inviting us to recognize His unwavering leadership in our lives. If this message has impacted you in any way, I invite you to leave your comments in the comment section, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and share this video so that more people can be blessed and transformed by biblical messages. God bless you in a unique way. Until our next video.